in the smoke up there. As we move forward into the foreground, it really emphasizes the depth of the shot. But we have another little issue, which is, we have a masking issue. Obviously, he has to be behind this orc thingy, whatever we want to call that. Now, we can put in some snazzy rotor shapes and build that up. You can also pull off soft edges and things like this and add a second shape and have all this sort of fun. But rather than sit and roto it, we're going to use a rotospline I've already created. Let's take a look how this is. So this one's already rotoed into place, but you can see it's what we call a crap rotospline. It really is not very good at all. It's really quite poor quality. But we'll go ahead and start off the masking process and just see what we can do about that. So we'll just use another node. This particular one says hold it outside of this mask. And here we go. So now we just brought in the mask to mask off that troll. So now the troll is behind the orc. But as you can see, this edge is quite a solid edge. So one thing we can do is to say, well, let's just turn on the motion blur for that motion spline, clean, soft edge. I'll turn off the motion blur. You can see that right in there. I'll turn it back on, and it looks good again. So the motion blur on the splines is a very nice, handy little feature. And you can tune it in the globals as well. So every single motion node that you have, you can turn them all off instantly if you want to with the globals. Okay, another issue that we have is moving forward a little bit. We have a problem here with Gimli, in that this thing should be behind Gimli, so we have another mask as well over here. All right, so all we have to do is combine these two masks. That's very easily done. If you click on the right button, there we go. Just bring those two together. You can see here, I'll ignore that again. See it being put in front and behind our little dwarfish friend here. All right. Now moving forward just a bit further, we have another problem in that the hammer is behind Gimli. That's good, that's good, that's good, that's bad. Okay, good, good, good. Bad, 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 good, good, good. Okay, so we have to basically animate the mask up and down, which again is quite easily done. So I'm going to put in a keyframe here. Good, good, good. Bad, good. Okay, so we'll just put in a keyframe there, go back to the bad bit, and just bring the mask down, like that. So now we put the hammer over Gimli, and that way we get the a nice sort of layering effect with Gimli and the hammer there. Okay, so the troll is more or less okay for what we want right now. Obviously, in the context of a 20-minute demo, he's not going to be perfect. Okay, now let's work on the this guy here, and he presents a couple of problems. One, he's attacking us. That's not nice. Two, more distressing than that, is the fact that this is a handheld moving camera, and whenever they say shoot an effect shot, they always say don't use a handheld moving camera. The second thing is, well, this plate is static camera, so we have to somehow, obviously, get rid of the blue screen. We have to take into account that this is a horrible blue screen, to be honest. In fact, half of the image doesn't even have blue on it. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. But we're also going to have to track into place. Now, let's go ahead and start working on the keying. And this is our view on keying demos. If you see a keying demo and it works like that in an instant, you know that you're not getting the full story, because anyone who's done any keying knows that you really have to work quite a while. So I'm not going to give you the perfect keying demo. I'd really love to. But basically what we're saying is using this node view, using these little sort of series of nodes, is really giving you a framework in which to combine different keys into successful, you break things down into little successive steps. So here we're using Keylight and Primat. These are two great keyers, and I could sing the virtues for hours and hours, but I won't. We also have Ultimat. I know that the fellows from Ultimat are out there as well. Ultimat's available as a third-party plugin. These are all great keyers, but the best part of it is that you can very easily combine keys. So here, for example, I have a little bit of a problem here. So maybe I want to take a second key and just increase the contrast on that, and then maybe chew down the key a little bit so it's a little bit smaller, maybe soften it up a little bit. Then I can feed that back into the other keyer, and so you really come up with a more solid keying solution. So it's really the ability not to say that there's this wonder keyer that's going to do everything that you ever wanted, because that's, as anyone who's done keying knows, that's just a myth. It doesn't exist. What's really powerful about it is that you can break things down into separate components and then continue on with your composite. So let's take our initial key and see what we have here so far. And we see that now we brought in the entire studio into the shop, which doesn't really help us. So luckily, I've also put in another garbage mat here. Let's go ahead and take advantage of that. We're going to just knock everything outside of there. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the inside. That's easily done. Okay, so that got rid of all the set. And so we're liking this so far. Oh, here's another little issue. Our poor fellow ran outside of the blue screen, and we don't like him for that. But again, because you can combine keys, well, we have yet another spline. Then we just say, well, let's take this one, and we'll combine it with this other mask, and that will give me my final key composite there. Okay, and of course I can get rid of the little dots, but let's just pretend that we can't see those for the moment. Okay, everyone's pretending, right? Okay, good. Now, so moving along, we have two more challenges. One is that he kind of looks like he's running in, like he's jumping on big springs, okay, like someone put mattresses all along there. That's because, of course, the camera is moving, but the Orc's camera is not moving, so we have to track him into place. Now here's where we get very clever. Yes, we could track it, we have trackers, but Weta did this really neat trick, which is they already have a 3D camera tracking solution, which they got from 3D Equalizer, a fine German product. They used that, they rendered the troll out. So the troll, we just put it A over B, it's fine, it's solid, it works. So they said, aha. Now, have you ever seen like the Jurassic Park one? That was pretty well known. In Jurassic Park, they go, here's how we made Jurassic Park. And then they have this thing of the field, and they put tennis balls all over the field, right? And then they film that, and they go, now we track the tennis balls, and it works perfectly. So these guys at Weta, they did something very clever. They said, we already have the virtual camera. We will therefore put in virtual tracking balls that are actually being rendered out of Maya. And so therefore, we'll just track those. We'll end up with our proper tracking solution. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll put in 2 trackers for this particular one. And anything I want to do here? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Okay, so you can do 1-point, 2-point tracking, 4-point tracking, so you can do corner pinning, you can stabilize, you can do match moving, you can take expressions with tracks and have them drive other things like blur nodes. You can do camera moves where you want to extract all the jittery noise, so you just end up with the camera move. All sorts of fun little things that you can do with the tracks. This is my little what to talk about while at track speech. Anyway, so we're done with that. This track, it's got the data in there. We'll just take that and we'll activate the track. Now I can use this proxy system to help me out because it's getting a little bit complicated. So now we can see that the Orc is now tracked into the rotations of the scene. So that's good. We like that. Okay, one last little bit here that we have to worry about is the fact that he's also over Gimli. I don't know if you can see that very well, but he's on top of Gimli. That's bad. So we will also, again, hold the same mats that we used for the troll. We can just reuse those again very easily by finding them inside the tree. Now I can always zoom out if I want to. I also have a little sort of Warcraft finder, if you will, so you can zoom around like that. So that even though it looks kind of complicated to the new user, once you're sort of used to it, it doesn't really look too much like spaghetti, which is helpful. Okay, the last thing we're going to do for this particular shot is we have to get rid of him. After we spend so much time getting him in there, we have to get rid of him. So right here, he gets hit. Ow, quit it. Ow, quit it. So, sorry. Okay, so around this frame, what they did is they said, well, we're going to make a 3D virtual double, if you will. So before this frame, he's not there, and at frame 64, he pops in, and away he goes. So it's a very simple matter to say, well, we have this guy, and we have this guy, so we'll just switch them at frame 64. That's very easily done. So we'll just take that and put in the proper node here. And you can see here, as I switch the slider here, I'm just switching which input gets passed on to the rest of the composite. So we'll just switch that over to 2. So therefore it runs up, runs up, runs up, runs up. Ow, stop, it hurts, Dad. Okay, so that's how we would get rid of that OR. Okay, last little bit that we'll do is, one nice thing about the software is that you can change the resolution at any time. So maybe you're working in PAL, but for some strange reason you have to send something off to the US, God forbid, so you'd have to bring it down to 486, right? Well, anytime you can change the resolution, which means you can also zoom things up to HD, or maybe you're doing HD, you want to go out to film. Again, it's very easy to resize at any point in the project. You could also output different resolutions simultaneously. So that's a bit about how we put this shop together. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the engine features of the software. And let's get rid of all these fun guys. Whatever. Okay, now one thing about, you might be saying, good gosh, that looks like an awful lot of work. And to be honest, it is. And you also might be saying, well, I don't, I'm only doing video ads. Is this good for me? What can Shake do? Well, it certainly has a lot of functionality that will apply to any kind of production. So, first of all, it's designed for film work, which means it can handle very large format images and it can work very, very quickly. So this is a PAL resolution image, a QuickTime file. Here I've just put a Gaussian blur on there, and you can see it's going very, very quickly for the Gaussian blur. And you go, okay, that's not so impressive. Now what I'm going to do is just pull this back a little bit, and actually that was on proxy, my mistake, there we go. So this is a PAL resolution image here, and I've just zoomed out a bit because what I'm going to do is read in a 6K plate. So this plate, instead of being 720 pixels across, this is 6,000 pixels across, actually a little bit more than that. So let's compare the two images. PAL, 6K, it's actually much bigger than that. Okay, so you see this is a very, very, very large image. Let's go up to full size there. See, it's very, very large. So we're designed to handle large format images. Let's put a Gaussian blur on there, and maybe go up to 1,000 pixels. And you can see it's going to take me probably about 4 to 5 seconds on this particular machine. So of course that is a very impressive rendering time, especially considering the fact that it's a 6K plate. So you can see that Shake is really at its depth and designed to handle very complex scenes, very large formats. So if you're considering working in HD, I think Shake would be a very appropriate choice, if you will. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple of macros and some of the more technical aspects of the software. One of the nice things is, let's not use this one, let's use a different one, is that you can work with expressions and links so that, for example, here we just have some silly thing that says expressions. Actually, we can't even see it. But I'm going to turn on the link display, and somehow this node here is linked up to this blur node. We see these little purple arrows indicating this. So you can cross-link any expression, any field to any other text field, so that if I modify the blur node, I'm going to see that the lighting, for example, changes on the text. It also changes the blur, of course, and it also changes the brightness as we go, so it increases the brightness. So you can cross-link anything to anything else. Now, another thing that's going on here that's kind of interesting is that, let's see if we can see this properly. Okay, I think you can see that. All right, this is a case of we're blurring it and then we're brightening it up, but we're seeing that we're getting some banding because it's working at 8 bits per channel. Now, fortunately in Shake, you can work at 8 bits, but any time you can boost it up to a higher bit depth. And I don't mean the entire tree, but only where you need that extra mathematical data. So we'll bring this up to 16 bits, and you see just in this part of the tree, it's gone up to 16 bits. If you want to, you can then later on add another bytes node and bring it back down to 8 bits and continue working at that more efficient, speedier bit depth. So you can always change your bit depth, which is a very and the expressions are also very nice because you can drive many channels at once. So let's give another example of expressions. In this case, you can see that everything, all these guys are somehow linked up to this particular node, which in fact is this little R-grad thing. So as I move this around, the expressions are driving everything else in the scene. So all these guys are updating based on very tricky stuff that I'm not going to go into, but let me just say it was a lot of fun to set it up. Because then you can do this kind of neat thing. How often do you do this in production? I don't know. I'm going to be honest. But it's cool looking. Okay. So you can start to see that it's a very, very complex, very deep software, and you really can really push it where it needs to go. You have to keep in mind this is being used by small production houses, but it's also being used by some of the largest facilities in the planet. So I think we say on the planet, don't we? Okay, let's take another example of why this is the case. Here we're going to just take a bit of text here, and we're going to talk about macros. So Shake also allows you to make your own functionality. Actually, before I do this, let's just see if I have a, no, I'm missing one file. Okay, I'm just going to mutter to myself for a while, if that's okay. All right, we're going to talk about macros, and so what I'm going to do here is make a sort of a glow macro that makes a nice glowing edge on it. It's very simple to do. We'll boost this up, and okay. So actually, I want to put that after. And now we'll brighten that up, and I see that. Oops! Again, I have that problem with the banding. So that's okay. I'll just boost that up to 16 bits again. And now I want to put that back. In this case, maybe under the text. And it doesn't look very interesting, so let's also put in a color control. So now I have sort of this bluish glowy thingy. Terrific. Now, this took me so very, very long to set up that I don't ever want to go through that pain and torment again. What I want to do is save it away so that next time I open up Shake, I have this function already available to me. So let's go ahead and call it the macro maker. And we'll call this glow. And we'll put it into the filter tab. And it also allows me to pick up which parameters and which nodes I want to modify. So for example, we want to set in the blur values. Maybe I'll have a slider range of 0 to 500, and we'll call this blurriness. Kind of like you guys after watching this demo. Oh God, don't continue, please stop. We'll also put in a brightness value, and we'll put that up to 10. And we'll also put in the color values. And we'll go ahead and say OK. And so now when I go to my filter tab, I have this brand new button available to me. And now it's its own little plug that then has its controls so that I can go ahead and this even had enough intelligence to put in a color picker for me. So you can put in a lot of your own little custom sort of things. I also could change the brightness all within one nice little tidy package. So if I wanted to do it over here, for example, you could say, well, let's use the glow on this thing. And now you get this horrendous, nasty neon sight. Okay, so, but the point being, the macros are really a great way of sort of saving yourself a lot of repetitive steps. You can save things away. You can also pass knowledge from more senior compositors to junior compositors. And the third way is that there's a website called High-End 2D, which has a lot of people continually putting in their own macros. So you don't even have to buy them, you just download them, and you have effects. This is an example of a more complex macro. And what I'm going to do is composite this blue screen and use this macro as more of a designy element. So this macro is not very interesting at the moment. What it does is if I move this cross around, then these 4 arrows update. Well, let's add a little bit of complexity. So here now we have 4x4 arrows. We can also change the, for example, the arrow width. So a little bit higher, increase the size. You're like, great, terrific. But let's see what else we can do. We can randomize the color. We can change, of course, the color. We can also do this little focus trick. So now they're all pointing at this little crosshair. So you see they do something very stupid like that without a Wacom tablet. You can go ahead and grab the color. You can change the brush size. You can actually move the stroke around and do silly things like that. You can also do a sort of a draw on and draw off effect. And we're just going to get rid of this particular stroke. What here I've done is already sort of put in some paint strokes that match up with the hand drawing. So now it looks like he's kind of smearing some paint on there. But I'm kind of looking at this going, I don't know, I'm not buying it. So what we could do is instead perhaps change the color. There we go, sorry. And there we go. So I've changed the color of the strokes. I could also animate that, of course, but I still don't really particularly like that. So what I'm going to do is use a smear brush. I'm going to change each brush stroke to be a smear, so that now you can see over here it's kind of smearing that paint. Let's go to a further frame. See that it's able to tear that paint and pull it away. But the nice thing about this, because it is procedural, that means you can go back and change the background. Let's go up to, say, 6 by 6 arrows. And you see that that smear updates automatically. I don't have to go back and redraw my brush stroke. So with that in mind, I have a somewhere in here. There we go. We have a nice little more complicated version. Oh look, I found a new hot stroke in QuickTime. I'm always finding new things. So this is a more sort of finished version of that same quip that we just looked at. Obviously, something like this would be very complicated to do just by doing it by hand. All right, now so you do have the ability to make macros. You can see it's a very deep software, but we also have several plugins available. So we have the Sapphire plugins, we have the Foundry's plugins are available, we have retiming plugins, but we have, the Foundry has announced a new set of plugins called Furnace, and I'm just going to show you a quick time for this. We're not going to go into it, but this is what Furnace does. It's a new product that's coming out